Chapter 97. Worth the Pain. Gojo was second-guessing his decision to have lunch in the cafeteria. He sat across the table from Geto and watched him poke at the rice on his tray with his chopsticks, looking uncomfortable. The hum of voices, clattering of dishes and pots and pans wasn't unusually loud or intrusive, but Geto hadn't looked up once since they sat down. Maybe it wasn't the noise. Maybe it was the students, who still kept their distance and gave each other looks when he walked by. Gojo wanted Geto to feel more comfortable at their school again, but maybe this was too much. They had the long table all to themselves until Nanami set his tray beside Geto's. "Hey, Geto, Gojo," Nanami said in his deep bass voice. His blonde hair was grown out longer than he usually kept it, and he tucked a lock of it behind his ear. Geto looked up for the first time. "Hey, Nanami," he said quietly. Gojo gave him his signature sarcastic salute. "Hey." Geto stared at his food again, and Nanami picked up his sandwich and started eating, seeming uninterested in conversation. Shoko showed up at their table next and plopped herself next to Gojo, setting her food tray down with a clatter. "I'm starving," she said in lieu of a greeting, snapping her chopsticks apart. She dug into her rice and chicken and started to tell Gojo about some of the crazy treatments she had to do while on assignment with another sorcerer team. When Shoko began talking to Gojo, Nanami had turned to Geto and began his own conversation. At first, Geto was giving short but polite answers, but as Nanami kept on, Geto's shoulders relaxed and he even ate a few bites of food. Gojo was only half listening to Shoko, discreetly trying to catch pieces of Nanami and Geto's conversation, but they were speaking in low voices, hard to hear over the ambient noise. He scolded himself for trying to eavesdrop. Just because there was a time he was jealous of Nanami over Geto didn't mean anything was happening now. He tried to give Shoko the friendly attention she deserved. Nanami didn't quite know how to broach the subject of Geto's absence and nature of it. Their short lunch period was probably not the time for it. He made some small talk, but after a while he could feel Gojo's eyes on him, and he decided to finish his food in silence. After lunch, Gojo and Geto met Yaga at the training chambers. He had the birdcage with the bee curse again. Geto put his hand over the slow healing wound he sustained days before. Yaga carried the cage to the middle of the training mats. "Gojo, infinity off," Yaga instructed bluntly. "This again?" Gojo asked. "Geto needs to strengthen and maintain his control over the curse and not self-sacrifice as a panic response." Yaga looked at Geto pointedly. "Yes, sensei, understood," Geto said. Gojo sat down at the tatami mats, cross-legged, and waited. Yaga stepped back a few feet and retrieved the curse from the birdcage. His stopwatch hung from his wrist. Geto took a deep breath. He had saved Gojo from being stung last time, but he had felt Gojo's disapproval of sacrificing himself in the process. He didn't want to let him down again. The bee curse was freed from the talisman, and Geto caught it in his pull immediately. It buzzed angrily with its metallic wings, vibrating against Geto's cursed energy. Geto maintained control until he felt something brush against his leg. He glanced down, trying to keep his energy up. But when he saw a stuffed animal cat weave around his legs, his control faltered. Yaga had animated the toy with his cursed energy and was using it as a distraction for Geto. The bee freed itself from Geto's weakened pull and advanced on Gojo, who was sitting with his eyes closed, palms up on his knees, listening to the chaos in the room. Geto stepped over the cat and caught the bee again and drew it in. The pull to his palm felt so familiar now, and he had to remind himself not to go on autopilot of subjugating the curse for consumption like he did in the old days. He only needed to bring the curse close enough to keep in his strongest range of energy. The cat circled around Geto's legs again, then stretched out and used one of his legs as a scratching post. Geto bit back a cry. He gritted his teeth and didn't fall for the distraction. He kept the bee close while waiting out the timer on Yaga's stopwatch. The bee's emotion started to fade a little, and Geto's brow furrowed. He was glad he didn't let his guard down, because the curse flared and made another push in the opposite direction, towards Gojo. Geto stepped towards the curse, but the cat darted in front of him, causing him to stumble. His arm remained extended, his energy steady and strong. The bee was still under his control. With a screech, the toy cat jumped and sunk its teeth into Geto's outstretched arm, then scampered away. "Fuck!" Geto grunted. His own cursed energy flared dangerously before he contained it. The cat bite burned as oxygen hit the open wound, and he could feel blood trickling down to his elbow, but he held on. His breathing became ragged as time went on. The bee's emotions kept flaring. Geto could feel his arm tingle from pain, exertion, and cursed energy output. Then he heard Yaga's voice call, "Time!" and Gojo sprung up from the mats and went to check on Geto. Yaga grabbed the bee and resealed it. The toy cat lay inanimate nearby. Gojo was holding Geto's shaking arm. He hadn't rolled his long sleeves up before training, and the torn fabric over his right forearm was dark red with blood. "Sorry about that, Geto. It wasn't supposed to be that aggressive. Go see Shoko, now." Yaga eyed Geto's arm injury and his shredded pant leg. They put their shoes on, and Gojo carried their backpacks and jackets as they made their way to Shoko's school clinic, Geto limping slightly. She seemed to already know they were on their way, and was leaning against the exam table when they walked in. "Let's see it." Shoko motioned for Geto to sit on the table. She pulled the bloody fabric away from his wound with gloved hands and took a look. She wiped the blood off with a sharp-smelling antiseptic, which caused Geto to flinch. Gojo hovered too close, and Shoko raised an eyebrow at him. It took less than 2 minutes for her to seal up the bite. She ripped the rest of Geto's pant leg up to his knee so she could repair the long scratch marks the cat left on his leg. "Since you're already here, anything else that needs fixing?" she asked Geto. He decided to let her heal the cursed bee sting. This seemed to please Gojo. Later that night, after Geto settled next to Gojo in bed, Gojo leaned in and pressed his mouth against Geto's, sealing him with a deep, long kiss. "You saved me again," Gojo said breathlessly. "It was worth the pain," Geto answered. "I don't ever want you to take the pain from me, Suguru." "You'd do it for me," Geto pointed out. Yeah, that's true," Gojo said quietly. He reached out for Geto's waist underneath the blankets and pulled him in. "You're my weakness. I'd do anything for you." "Anything?" Geto wondered softly. "What do you want, Suguru?" Gojo whispered back. "Touch me. Anywhere." Gojo moved his hand to the back of Geto's thigh and squeezed gently. He waited for more instruction. "Kiss me." Gojo pressed his lips to Geto's and pulled away. "Kiss me and touch me down there," Geto told him. Gojo kissed Geto's mouth deep and placed his hand in between Geto's legs, caressing him. "Don't stop until I come," Geto murmured. Gojo kissed Geto's neck while he used his hands to pleasure him. Gojo's body stiffened with his own desire. Geto's warm breath against his ear drove him mad. Geto's breathing hitched, and Gojo gently wrapped a hand around his shaft and moved it, slow and seductive, until Geto came. Gojo waited for Geto's body and breathing to settle before he asked for more instruction. "Tell me," he begged. "Fuck me, hard and deep." Gojo shifted over Geto's body and spread Geto's legs wide to enter him. He thrust into him hard, and Geto gasped, fingers digging into Gojo's back. Gojo leaned into him, and Geto wrapped his arms around his neck. "How does it feel?" Geto asked, his voice thick like honey. Geto's body was so warm, Gojo was struggling to hold himself back. "You're so tight. It feels good being inside you," Gojo confessed breathlessly. "Don't come yet." Gojo gasped and held on. His body tingled. He fucked Geto harder. "Not yet," Geto said. Gojo moaned, his restraint barely hanging on. "Suguru, please, please," Gojo begged. "Give me everything." With a strangled cry, Gojo let himself go inside Geto, coming hard, body trembling. Now he understood where Geto's tears during sex came from. Even Gojo couldn't control his body's response to intense pleasure and release. He pulled Geto in close. The tears flowed freely, and he sobbed as he tightened his arms around him. "I gave you everything I had," Gojo said tearfully. I know you did," Geto whispered, brushing Gojo's tears away with a shaky hand. "Maybe I shouldn't have asked you to."